The crystal champagne flute slipped from Ilara's fingers, shattering against the polished slate floor. Through the crack in the heavy oak door, she watched her world collapse in real time. Caleb sat across from Mrs. Dubois, a steel-haired investor with calculating eyes. Between them lay a contract and Ilara's photograph. "It's simple, Mr. Sterling," Mrs. Dubois said coolly. $50 million for your father's logistics empire. In exchange, you marry my daughter, someone more suitable for your station. Ilara held her breath, waiting for Caleb to refuse, to stand up, to fight for their 3 years together. But his pen never hesitated. He didn't even think twice. He signed the contract immediately. One signature. That's all it took to erase everything they'd built. Ilara stumbled backward, her heart shattering into as many pieces as the champagne flute. She had to leave. Now. Before they saw her, before she completely fell apart. But as she turned to flee, she collided with a solid chest. Strong hands steadied her. She looked up into the face of a distinguished older man she'd never seen at any Sterling family function. Sharp-featured, impeccably dressed, with eyes that seemed to see straight through her. "Leaving so soon, Miss Vance?" His voice was smooth, deep, dangerous. "I'm Xavier Sterling, Caleb's uncle." He glanced at the door she'd been watching through, then back at her tear-stained face. A slight smile crossed his lips. "It appears we both have reasons to make the Sterlings regret their choices. I have a proposition for you." What Ilara didn't know was that Xavier wasn't just Caleb's estranged uncle. He was the man who'd shattered everything she'd ever believed in. And worse, he was the most dangerous man in 3 states. Before we see what Ilara does next, don't forget to like this video. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the exciting stories we release daily. Hit that notification bell because this story is about to get wild. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's get into Ilara's story. Ilara Vance had always believed in signs. When she found the positive pregnancy test in Caleb's bathroom trash 3 months ago, one that definitely wasn't hers since she was on birth control, she dismissed it as old, maybe from a previous guest. When his late-night business calls became more frequent, she'd trusted him. When his mother started making pointed comments about appropriate pedigrees at family dinners, she'd held her head high. But there were no excuses for what she was witnessing now. The Sterling family estate in Chicago was hosting what Caleb had called a small investor meeting. He'd asked Ilara to come early, help set up, and play the perfect future daughter-in-law. She'd arrived in her best dress, a deep sapphire blue to match the engagement ring he'd given her, only to realize she'd forgotten her tablet in the car. That forgotten tablet had saved her from a lifetime of lies. When she'd returned through the library entrance, she'd heard voices in the study. The door was ajar, just enough to see inside, just enough to hear everything. "You understand, this is business, Caleb." The woman's voice was smooth as poison. "Madeleine Dubois, CEO of Dubois Global, one of the largest shipping conglomerates on the Great Lakes. My investment comes with conditions, non-negotiable conditions." "I understand, Mrs. Dubois." Caleb's voice, the same voice that had whispered, "I love you," just that morning, sounded hollow. His father, Richard Sterling, placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "The Vance girl is pretty, I'll give you that. But beauty doesn't secure legacies, son. Madeleine's daughter, Genevieve, has a law degree from Yale and connections throughout Europe. This marriage alliance will set our family up for generations." Ilara's breath caught. Marriage alliance. "What about Ilara?" Caleb asked, but there was no real fight in his voice, just obligation. Madeleine laughed, cold and calculated. "What about her? Give her a severance package, apologize, move on. Women like that are resilient. She'll find another man to take care of her. You're doing her a favor. Really, she would have never fit into our world anyway. Women like that. The words burned through Ilara's chest. She knew exactly what Madeline meant. It didn't matter that Ilara had a master's degree in structural engineering. Didn't matter that she'd built her own successful consulting firm from the ground up. Didn't matter that she'd been the one helping Caleb with his logistics models. That half the strategies that made Sterling Logistics successful had come from her mind. What mattered was that she was Latina. That her last name didn't open doors in their country clubs. That she wasn't part of their carefully curated vision of dynasty and old money. Sign here, Caleb. Madeline slid papers across the desk. Break the engagement officially, and the $50 million transfers to Sterling Logistics today. You'll announce your engagement to Genevieve next month. Clean, simple, profitable. Ilara waited for Caleb to stand up, to tell them all to go to hell, to choose love over money. He picked up the pen. The world tilted sideways. 3 years. She'd given him 3 years of her life. She'd turned down a prestigious contract in London to stay in Chicago with him. She'd endured his mother's microaggressions and his father's dismissive attitude. She'd loved him with everything she had, and he was trading her for a wire transfer. As Caleb's signature dried on the page, Ilara felt something inside her crystallize. Not break. Breaking implied something fragile, something weak. No, this was a transformation, from soft to sharp, from trusting to tactical. She grabbed a champagne flute from the hallway table and hurled it against the slate floor. The crash brought instant silence from the study. Then footsteps. Caleb appeared first, his face going pale. Ilara, I thought, when did I get here? She smiled, and it was all teeth. Early enough. Madeline emerged behind him, looking more annoyed than concerned. Richard followed, his expression calculating. Ilara, let me explain, Caleb started. Explain what? That you just sold me out for $50 million? That our entire relationship was apparently worth less than a merger? Her voice was steady, cold. No explanation necessary. I heard everything. You're upset. Understandably, Madeline said smoothly. But you're a smart woman. Surely you see that this is best for everyone. I'm prepared to offer you compensation for your time. Compensation? Ilara laughed, bitter and sharp. You want to pay me like I'm an employee you're firing? That's not what she meant, Richard interjected. But be reasonable, Miss Vance. You and Caleb come from different worlds. This was inevitable. Different worlds, Ilara repeated. You mean because you don't have the leverage our family needs? Richard cut her off. Don't make this personal. It's about business. Surely you understand business given your little consulting firm. Her little consulting firm, the one that had revenue in the 7 figures, the one that had been featured in Forbes, the one she built with her own hands while Caleb had inherited everything he had. Ilara, please, Caleb finally found his voice. I do care about you, but this is about my family's survival. You have to understand. I understand perfectly. She pulled the engagement ring from her finger. 3 carats, emerald cut. A cage disguised as a promise. She threw it at his feet. I understand that you're a coward, that your love was conditional, that I wasted 3 years on a man with no spine. She turned to leave. You'll regret this, Madeline called after her. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I can make sure you never work in this city again. Ilara paused, looking back over her shoulder. Try it. Unlike your future son-in-law, I built my empire myself. I don't need family money or connections. I have something you people have never had to develop. Actual talent. She walked out with her head high, but her hands were shaking. The December wind in Chicago was brutal, biting through her coat. She'd parked down the long driveway, and now she regretted every choice that had led her to this moment. Miss Vance, The voice came from the shadows near the estate's iron gate. Deep, resonant, unfamiliar. Ilara spun, her car keys positioned between her fingers as a weapon. "Who's there?" A man stepped into the light from the street lamps, and Ilara's breath caught for an entirely different reason. He was older, 50 if she had to guess, but age had only refined him into something devastating. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver threading through dark hair styled perfectly. His face was all sharp angles and smooth skin, distinct features that somehow seemed carved from granite. He wore a heavy wool overcoat that probably cost more than her apartment, and moved with the kind of fluid grace that spoke of either military training or dangerous experience. Maybe both. "Forgive me for startling you," he said. "My name is Xavier Sterling, though I believe you know my nephew." Ilara lowered her keys slightly, but didn't relax. "I didn't know Caleb had an uncle. He doesn't talk about you. He doesn't know about me, mostly." A slight smile touched his lips, sardonic and knowing. "His father and I have been estranged for 30 years. I only recently returned to Chicago." "And you just happened to be lurking by the gate during their investor meeting." "I don't lurk, Miss Vance. I observe." He moved closer, and she caught his scent. Something expensive and crisp. Sandalwood and winter air. "I arrived hoping to speak with my brother. Instead, I witnessed quite the interesting negotiation, and your rather magnificent exit. Were you spying on them?" "On them?" "No." His eyes, gray, intense, impossibly focused, met hers. "I was watching you." Warning bells should have rung. A strange man watching her, appearing from nowhere. But there was something in his gaze that wasn't predatory. It was assessing, like he was looking at a blueprint and determining its structural integrity. "That's creepy," she said, but didn't move away. "It's honest. Creepy would be pretending this was coincidence." He tilted his head slightly. "You have fire in you. I watched you discover your world was ending, and you didn't cry, didn't beg. You shattered and reformed into something sharper in the space of minutes. That's rare." "What do you want, Mr. Sterling?" "Xavier, please. Or just X, if you prefer. I use it for business." He reached into his coat, and Ilara tensed, but he only pulled out a business card. Heavy matte black cardstock embossed with gold. "I want to offer you an opportunity. I'm not interested in whatever—" "Revenge," he said simply. "I'm offering you revenge. And a way to take everything from the people who just tried to discard you like garbage." Now she was listening. He continued. "My nephew just traded you for $50 million and a connected bride. Imagine his face when you walk back into his world, not as the discarded fiancé, but as something untouchable. Someone with more power than his father ever dreamed of." "And how would I do that?" His smile widened, and for the first time, Ilara saw something dangerous in it, something that made her pulse quicken. "Marry me instead." Ilara stared at him. "You're insane." "Possibly," Xavier agreed pleasantly, "but I'm also very serious. Hear me out before you refuse." "I don't even know you. You didn't know my nephew was willing to sell you out until an hour ago. At least I'm being transparent about my intentions from the start." He gestured toward a stone bench near the gatehouse. 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes to explain. And if you're not interested, I'll disappear, and you'll never see me again." Ilara should have walked away, should have gotten in her car, gone home, cried into a bottle of wine like a normal person dealing with a broken engagement. But she'd never been normal, and the dark promise in his voice, revenge, was too tempting to ignore. She sat. Xavier settled beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. Up close, she could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the silver at his temples. He wasn't just handsome. He was distinguished, polished, like aged scotch in a heavy tumbler, I'll begin with the truth, he said. I've been aware of you for 2 years, Miss Vance, since I started researching my brother's dealings from Europe. 2 years? Alarm crept into her voice. Not stalking, due diligence. There's a difference. He pulled out his phone, showed her a Crane's Chicago business article. Your firm, Vance Solutions, revolutionized supply chain efficiency in the Midwest. You won the Innovator of the Year award last year, the youngest Latina ever to receive it. Your keynote on ethical logistics has thousands of views. You're remarkable, and you've been wasting yourself on a man who couldn't see your worth. Ilara's defenses wavered slightly. He'd done his homework. That still doesn't explain why you want to marry a stranger. 2 reasons. First, my brother. Xavier's expression hardened. Richard and I have history, bad history. He's the reason I left the States 30 years ago. He betrayed me, stole what was mine, built his empire on my losses. I've spent decades building my own power, waiting for the right moment to remind him that the sterling legacy belongs to me as much as him. That sounds like a you problem. He laughed, rich and genuine. Fair, but here's where it becomes your solution. My brother values 2 things: bloodline and appearance. Imagine his horror when his estranged brother, the one he's pretended doesn't exist for 3 decades, returns married to the woman his son just discarded. Married to someone he considers inappropriate for the family. So I'd be your revenge prop. You'd be my wife, legally, publicly, permanently, and in return you'd gain access to everything the Sterling family has: money, connections, power. He leaned forward. I own 22 legitimate businesses across the US and Europe, Miss Vance. Shipping, casinos, real estate, tech holdings. I'm worth approximately $4 billion. As my wife, you'd have resources to expand your firm globally. You'd have the Sterling name, my version of it, the version that actually strikes fear into people. And what would you get, besides pissing off your brother? His eyes darkened, and for a moment she saw something raw beneath the polished surface. You. I would get you. The honesty of it stole her breath. I'm 28, she said. You're 52. I know. He didn't look away. If age is a deal-breaker, I understand, but I'm not looking for a decoration or a trophy, Miss Vance. I'm looking for a partner, an equal, someone brilliant enough to match me, strong enough to survive in my world, and angry enough to want what I'm offering. What exactly is your world, Mr. Sterling? Xavier? My world is complicated. Some of my businesses are perfectly legitimate. Others operate in gray areas. I have connections that span from London to Las Vegas, friends in very high places and very low ones. I'm not a good man by conventional standards. Are you saying you're a criminal? I'm saying I'm practical. I do what needs to be done to protect what's mine and destroy what threatens me. He met her eyes. I would never ask you to get involved in the darker aspects of my work, but I won't lie about who I am either. A shadow CEO. The title from earlier suddenly made sense. This wasn't just some rich uncle with a grudge. This was someone powerful, someone dangerous, someone offering her everything she just lost and more. This is crazy, she whispered. Yes, we don't know each other. We will. Marriage is a contract, he interrupted gently. At its core, that's all it is. A legal agreement between 2 people. We can define the terms however we want. If you want separate bedrooms, you'll have one. If you want this to be purely business, it will be. I won't force myself on you or expect anything you're not willing to give. Then what do you expect? Publicly? Play the role. Be my wife at events, at family gatherings, in front of my brother. Help me integrate back into Chicago society with a brilliant, accomplished woman by my side. He paused. Privately, honesty, loyalty, and time. Time for what? To see if this could become something real. His voice softened. I know you don't know me. I know this seems insane. But I've watched you, studied you, admired you from afar for 2 years. I've seen your strength, your talent, your grace. I'm not proposing a real marriage today. I'm proposing the possibility of one, a partnership that might grow into something more if we're both willing. Ilara's mind raced. This was insane. Marrying a stranger, a self-admitted, dangerous man, someone 30 years older, just for revenge. But was it really just revenge? He was offering her power, resources, protection, a chance to build something bigger than she'd ever dreamed. And he was being honest about it, more honest than Caleb had ever been. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't, he said simply. Not yet. Trust is earned. But I can give you something right now that my nephew never did. A choice. Real agency. I'm not asking you to give up who you are or what you want. I'm asking you to take what you deserve and make them all choke on their regret. God help her. But the idea was intoxicating. I need time to think, she said. Of course. He stood, handed her the business card again. Take a week. Research me. You'll find things that frighten you, I'm sure. Investigate everything. Ask questions. Then call me with your answer. He started to walk away, then paused. For what it's worth, Miss Vance. Ilara, I think you deserve someone who sees you. All of you. Not just the parts that are convenient or profitable. His smile was gentle. Caleb was a fool, but his loss could be our beginning. Then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows like he'd never been there. Ilara sat near the gate for a long time, turning the black business card over in her hands. Xavier Sterling, CEO, Sterling Global Holdings. One internet search would tell her if he was telling the truth. One phone call would change her life forever. She looked back at the mansion where Caleb was probably celebrating his profitable betrayal. Then she pulled out her phone. Let me know in the comments if you think Ilara should take this deal or run. And if you're not already subscribed, what are you doing? Subscribe now because this story is about to get so much more intense. Should she marry the uncle? Keep watching to find out. Ilara spent the next 3 days doing what she did best. Research. Xavier Sterling, she discovered, was not exaggerating about his wealth or influence. His business empire was vast and diversified. Casinos in Monte Carlo and Vegas, a tech company specializing in encrypted data, shipping lines that dominated the Atlantic. The legitimate businesses alone would make him a billionaire. But then there were the rumors. Whispers on deep web forums about his connections, articles that mentioned him in passing in relation to syndicate activity, though never with concrete evidence. A Chicago Tribune piece from 15 years ago linked him to the dismantling of a corrupt union boss, but positioned him as a consultant, not a perpetrator. He was careful. Whatever he was involved in, he kept it clean enough to avoid prosecution, but visible enough to maintain fear and respect. Ilara found one interview with a European financial magazine from 5 years ago. The article included a photo of Xavier at an opera premiere looking devastating in a tuxedo. The interviewer had asked about his personal life. I was married once, very young, he'd said. She died in a fire 30 years ago. Since then, I've devoted myself to acquiring rather than loving. Perhaps that was a mistake. Perhaps it's never too late to rebuild. A widower. That explained some of the loneliness she'd sensed beneath his polished exterior. She dug deeper into the Sterling family history. Richard Sterling had indeed had a brother, older by 2 years. The brothers had been partners in their 20s, running a modest trucking business. Then, abruptly, Xavier had left the country. 6 months later, Richard had suddenly acquired significant capital and expanded the business into what became Sterling Logistics. The timeline was suspicious. Very suspicious. On the 4th day, Caleb called. Ilara stared at her phone, watching his name flash on the screen. Part of her wanted to let it go to voicemail, but a larger part wanted to hear what possible excuse he could offer. She answered. "What?" "Ilara? Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for days." He sounded stressed. "Good. We need to talk." We have nothing to talk about. Please, just listen. I made a mistake. A huge mistake." His voice cracked convincingly. "I was pressured by my father, by Madeline. I wasn't thinking straight. But I've been miserable without you. I told them I can't go through with marrying Genevieve. I want you back." Ilara laughed, cold and sharp. "You want me back? I love you. I've always loved you. The money doesn't matter." Except it did matter. 4 days ago, it mattered enough for you to sign away our entire relationship. I panicked, but I've come to my senses now. Babe, please, we can get past this. I'll make it up to you. I swear. Let me guess, Ilara said. Madeline pulled her investment when you tried to negotiate terms? And Genevieve wasn't as pliable as they promised? So now you're crawling back to your backup plan? Silence. Then, it's not like that. It's exactly like that. She felt nothing. No heartbreak, no longing, just contempt. You traded me like I was inventory, Caleb. You showed me exactly what I'm worth to you. Did you really think a few days and some pretty words would make me forget? Ilara, be reasonable. I'm being extremely reasonable. I'm choosing not to destroy your life the way you tried to destroy mine. That's generous, considering. What's that supposed to mean? It means stay away from me. Don't call, don't text, don't show up at my office. We're done. We've been done since the moment you picked up that pen. She hung up immediately. Her phone buzzed with texts. Apologies, promises. Desperate pleas. She blocked his number and felt lighter for it. That evening, she called the number on Xavier's card. He answered on the second ring. Ilara. Just her name. But the way he said it, like it was something precious, made her stomach flutter. I have questions, she said. I have answers. Did you steal from your brother? Or did he steal from you? A pause, then direct. I appreciate the candor. He stole from me. My wife's life insurance policy, to be specific. She died in an apartment fire. $2 million. Richard was the executor of my assets while I was hospitalized with burns. And while I was incapacitated with grief, he transferred the money to himself. Built his empire with my tragedy. The bitterness in his voice was ancient, but still sharp. Why didn't you sue him? I tried. He had better lawyers, and had covered his tracks well enough to make it my word against his. So I left. Went to London. Started over. A breath. And I built something bigger than he could ever dream of. But the betrayal, that never heals. Are you actually Mafia? He laughed. Such a dramatic word. But yes, essentially. I have connections to what Americans would call organized crime. I don't traffic drugs or people. I have lines I won't cross. But I control information, territories, certain lucrative gray market operations. I protect my people and eliminate threats. Does that frighten you? It should, she admitted. But I think I'm too angry to be frightened right now. Anger is useful. It clarifies things. Caleb called me today. Did he? Xavier's voice went cold. What did my idiot nephew want? Me back. Apparently his new deal fell through. Of course it did. Madeleine Dubois is ruthless. The moment he showed weakness, she would have tightened the leash, and her daughter has a reputation for being impossible. A pause. What did you tell him? To never contact me again. Good. Satisfaction colored his tone. You deserve far better than him. Like a 52-year-old shadow boss I've known for less than a week? I'm 51, actually. Birthday's in January. She could hear his smile. And yes, exactly like that. Ilara sat on her couch, looking at the city lights through her window. This is insane. You've mentioned that. If I did this, if I actually agreed to marry you, what would it look like? Logistics. We'd marry quickly. City Hall or a private ceremony, whichever you prefer. I have a residence in the Gold Coast. Penthouse, 4 bedrooms, completely renovated. You'd have your own space, your own freedom. We'd appear together at necessary social functions. I'd introduce you to my business associates, and you'd help me navigate reintegrating into Chicago high society. And your brother? Caleb? We'd make sure they knew. Perhaps a casual mention at the right charity gala, or a wedding announcement in the Tribune. However you want to deliver the news that you've upgraded dramatically. She smiled despite herself. You're very confident. I'm very certain of what I want, and what I want is a partnership with you, however that evolves. His voice softened. I won't pressure you for romance or intimacy, Alara. If all this ever is a business arrangement and a friendship, I'll be content with that. But if it becomes more, I'll be grateful for every moment. Why me? Really? You could have anyone. I could have many people, he agreed. But I want someone extraordinary. Someone who builds instead of just inheriting. Someone who fights instead of just accepting. Someone who looks like a queen and thinks like a grandmaster. He paused. I want you. I've wanted you since I saw you speak at that logistics conference in London 2 years ago. You were brilliant, fierce. You talked about building systems that honor the workers, not just the profit margins. And I thought, that's someone I could spend my life learning from. Alara's breath caught. You were there? At my London keynote? Front row? 2 years. He'd been what? Watching? Waiting? It should have been creepy, but something about the way he said it felt more like patience. Like he'd been waiting for the right moment, the right circumstances. Or maybe she was rationalizing because she wanted this. Wanted the power, the revenge, the chance to throw her success in Caleb's face. Wanted him. The thought startled her. But sitting there, talking to this dangerous stranger with the careful voice and the terrible history, she realized she was intrigued. More than intrigued. He saw her not as a trophy or an obstacle, but as an equal, a partner. When was the last time Caleb had asked about her work, her dreams? When had he ever really seen her? If I say yes, she said slowly, I have conditions. Name them. I keep my business completely separate from yours. I won't launder money or be involved in anything illegal. Agreed. Your firm is yours. I wouldn't dream of tainting it. I want a prenup. That protects both of us, but ensures I'm not left with nothing if this goes wrong. I'll have my lawyers draft something generous. You should have your own attorney review it. I need honesty, always. I just had 3 years of lies. If you're going to do something that affects me, I need to know. You'll have it. Complete transparency about anything that involves you. And time, like you said, time to see if this could be real. No pressure, no expectations. Just possibility. All the time you need. Alara closed her eyes, took a breath, and jumped. Okay. I'll marry you, Xavier Sterling. The silence on the other end lasted 3 heartbeats. Then his voice, rough with something that might have been emotion. You won't regret this. I'd better not, because if you betray me like your nephew did, there's not a corner of this earth you'll be able to hide in. He laughed, delighted. Threatening me already? See, this is why we'll work. When should we make this official? Soon, before I lose my nerve. Tomorrow, City Hall, noon. Bring whatever you want to wear, or I can arrange something. I'll handle my own dress, thanks. Then I'll handle everything else. Alara? Yeah? Thank you for taking a chance on a dangerous old man. You're not that old. I'm old enough to know when something precious falls into my life. I won't waste it. After they hung up, Ilara sat in the dark for a long time. Then she started planning what she'd wear to her wedding and what she'd say when Caleb inevitably found out. City Hall was imposing in the winter light, all gray stone and bronze doors. Ilara arrived in a suit she'd bought that morning, cream wool with sharp lapels and wide-leg trousers. Powerful. Elegant. Not a wedding dress exactly, but not casual either. A middle ground. Like everything about this arrangement. Xavier was waiting on the steps, and the sight of him made her pause. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit with a black tie, looking like he'd stepped from a noir film. But what stopped her was the expression on his face when he saw her. Wonder, pure and unguarded. "You look breathtaking," he said as she approached. "You clean up well yourself." He offered his arm, and she took it. "I have witnesses inside. My attorney and my head of security. I hope that's all right. We need 2 people." "That's fine. I didn't really have anyone to invite anyway." The words came out more bitter than she'd intended. Xavier covered her hand with his. "After today, you'll have me, and everyone I know becomes available to you. You'll never lack for people again." Something about the promise in his voice made her believe him. The ceremony was short, efficient, surreal. The judge looked bored until Xavier slipped him what was probably a generous tip for expediting the paperwork. Then he became much more enthusiastic about pronouncing them husband and wife. "You may kiss your bride," the judge said. Xavier looked at her, a question in his eyes. Ilara made a split-second decision and leaned up, pressing her lips to his. It was supposed to be quick, performative. But the moment their mouths met, something electric shot through her. His lips were soft, warm, and he tasted like coffee and clove. His hand came up to cup her cheek, gentle but possessive, and for 3 heartbeats, the world disappeared. When they broke apart, his eyes were dark. "Well," he said softly, "that was unexpected. Consider it sealing the deal. Then it's the best business transaction I've ever made." They signed papers in a small office. Ilara Vance became Ilara Sterling so easily it was almost anticlimactic. Just a signature, and her entire life changed direction. Outside, a car was waiting. Not a limo, too ostentatious, but a sleek black Bentley with a driver who nodded respectfully at Xavier. "This is Marcus," Xavier introduced. "He's been with me for 15 years. Marcus, my wife, Ilara." Marcus smiled warmly. "Welcome to the family, ma'am. Congratulations." The word family settled strangely in Ilara's chest. They drove to his penthouse, her penthouse now, she supposed, in comfortable silence. Xavier's hand rested near hers on the seat, close but not touching, respecting boundaries. The building was on the Gold Coast, exclusive and elegant. They rode the elevator to the top floor, and when Xavier opened the door, Ilara couldn't suppress her gasp. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Lake Michigan and the skyline. The design was modern but warm. Exposed steel, mahogany floors, carefully curated art on the walls. The furniture was clearly expensive but lived in. Comfortable. This wasn't a showroom. This was a home. "The master bedroom is through there," Xavier said, pointing. "But I've prepared a suite for you on the opposite side. Your own bedroom, bath, walk-in closet, and a small sitting room if you want privacy." "Where will you sleep?" "The guest room, unless you prefer I take the master and you—" "No, I meant—" She turned to him. "This is your home. I'm not kicking you out of your own bedroom. Our home now, and I want you comfortable. I'll take the suite." "I'll take the suite," she decided for now. "But you keep your room." "For now," he repeated, and something in his tone suggested he was filing that phrase away. "Are you hungry? I can cook, or we can order something." "You cook?" He smiled. I've lived alone for 30 years, Alara. I learned to take care of myself. Though I'll warn you, I'm better with French cuisine than American. I love French food. Then let me make us something. A wedding dinner, just the two of us. She followed him to the kitchen, a chef's dream with marble counters and professional-grade appliances. Xavier moved through the space with easy confidence, pulling out ingredients, setting a pan to heat. Can I help? Alara asked. Can you chop shallots? I can manage that. They worked side by side, and it felt normal. Domestic, like they'd done this 100 times before, instead of being strangers who'd gotten married hours ago. Tell me about your firm, Xavier said as he seared duck breast. What projects are you working on? So she did. She told him about her current contract for a sustainable distribution center in Detroit, about her plans for green logistics chains, about her dream of creating supply networks for disaster relief. He listened, really listened, asking intelligent questions, offering insights from his own shipping experience. You think differently than most consultants, he observed. You design for resilience, not just speed. Speed is nice, she admitted, but it's fragile. I grew up in a neighborhood where systems failed constantly because nobody cared enough to build them to last. I want to prove that reliability is more profitable than shortcuts. Your parents must be proud. A shadow crossed her face. My mom died when I was 16. Aneurysm. My dad, he tried, but he was never the same after. He died 5 years ago. Heart failure. I'm sorry. Xavier covered her hand briefly. Loss is difficult. You understand? Your wife, Isabel? Yes. He was quiet for a moment. She was young, 23. We'd been married 2 years. An electrical fire in our complex. The alarms failed. He set down his knife. Richard was supposed to maintain that building. Instead, he cut corners to save money. That's when I learned that blood doesn't guarantee safety. Is that why you never remarried? Partially. Also because I was building an empire and becoming someone dangerous. That's not a life you inflict on someone you love. He looked at her. But you're different. You're choosing this with full knowledge of who I am. Am I, though? She challenged. I know the broad strokes, but I don't really know you. Then ask me anything. Tonight. Complete honesty. Whatever you want to know. So she asked, and he answered. She learned that he'd been a dock worker in London before working his way into legitimate shipping, that he'd killed 3 men in his life, all in self-defense or defense of others, but killed nonetheless, that he'd built his organization on loyalty and fear in equal measure, that he owned judges, politicians, and police in 2 countries. He didn't sugarcoat it, didn't make excuses. I'm not a good man, he said again, but I'm a fair one. I protect what's mine, and I honor my word. You're mine now, Alara. That means I'll protect you with everything I have, and I'll never lie to you. What if I can't handle it? She whispered. What if your world is too dark for me? Then I'll shield you from it. You'll never have to touch the darkness if you don't want to. You can live your life, build your networks, be brilliant. I'll handle the shadows. They ate the dinner he made. Duck à l'orange, roasted asparagus, fondant potatoes. It was delicious, and Alara said so. My mother's recipes, he said. She died 10 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry. We share similar wounds, she observed. Perhaps that's why this feels less strange than it should. After dinner, they sat on the couch with wine, watching the snow fall over the lake. What happens tomorrow? Alara asked. Do we announce this, or? That's up to you. We can be public immediately, or we can wait. Though I'd like to tell my brother soon. The anticipation of his reaction is half the fun. She laughed. You really hate him. I really do. He swirled his wine. He took everything from me and never apologized, never even acknowledged it, and he raised his son to be just as callous. Caleb called me again today. I didn't answer. He'll keep trying. Men like that can't accept rejection. They think persistence equals romance. What would you do if someone rejected you? Xavier looked at her, and his gaze was intense. I'd respect their choice, but I'd also make sure they knew exactly what they were turning down. I'd be unforgettable, even in absence. You're very confident. I'm very aware of my value, as you should be of yours. He set down his wine. Elara, you're 28 years old, and you've accomplished more than most people do in a lifetime. You're brilliant, beautiful, and brave enough to marry a dangerous stranger for revenge and possibility. Any man would be lucky to have your attention. Don't ever let anyone make you feel otherwise. The conviction in his voice made her chest tight. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For seeing me. Caleb looked at me for 3 years and never really saw me. You've known me less than a week, and you see everything. Then he's an even bigger fool than I thought. Xavier stood, offered his hand. It's getting late. Let me show you to your room. The suite he prepared was beautiful, decorated in soft creams and teals, with fresh lilies on the dresser and the closet already stocked with hangers. I took the liberty of having some clothes delivered, he said, opening the closet to reveal an array of coats, dresses, and boots. I estimated sizes based on photos. If anything doesn't fit, we'll exchange it. You bought me an entire winter wardrobe? You're my wife. I want you to have everything you need. He paused. Though I'm sure you prefer your own style. These are just temporary until you can shop for what you actually want. Elara ran her hand over a beautiful cashmere sweater. They're perfect, thank you. There's one more thing. He pulled a small box from his pocket. I know this isn't a traditional marriage, but you should have a ring. He opened it, and Elara's breath caught. The ring was stunning. A deep vintage ruby surrounded by diamonds set in platinum. Elegant, unique, nothing like the generic emerald cut Caleb had given her. Ruby, she whispered. My birthstone. July. Yes, I wanted something that was yours. Not just any ring, but one chosen specifically for you. He slipped it onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. How did you know my size? A slight smile. I have my ways. Did I get it right? It's perfect. They stood there, her hand in his, the weight of the ring both foreign and right. Good night, Elara, he said softly. Sleep well, and if you need anything, I'm just across the hall. Good night, Xavier. He left, closing the door quietly behind him. Elara sat on the bed, looking at the ring on her finger, and wondered what the hell she'd just done, and why it felt so much like the right choice. 3 weeks passed in a strange, suspended reality. Elara moved her essential belongings into the penthouse. She returned to work at her firm, where her team had questions about her sudden absence but accepted her vague explanations. She spent evenings with Xavier, learning about him, letting him learn about her. They cooked together, watched old movies, talked for hours about everything and nothing. He introduced her to his business associates, carefully vetted ones who wouldn't terrify her with the full scope of his operations. She showed him her design blueprints, and he offered surprisingly insightful feedback. It felt like dating, except they were already married, and the chemistry between them was undeniable. Little touches, his hand on her back as they walked, her fingers brushing his as they passed dishes, lingering looks across the dinner table. The way her pulse jumped when he smiled. But Xavier never pushed, never assumed. He was perfectly, frustratingly gentlemanly. Until the night everything changed. They'd been watching a film, sitting close on the leather sofa. Elara was hyper-aware of his proximity, the warmth of him, the sandalwood scent she'd come to associate with safety. Can I ask you something? She said during a quiet scene. Always. Why haven't you... we're married, but you haven't... touched you? Beyond the occasional hand-holding? He supplied. Yes. Because you're not ready. And when you are, you'll tell me. How do you know I'm not ready? He turned to her, and his gaze was molten. Because when you are, you won't ask questions. You'll simply take what you want. You're not passive, Ilara. When you decide you want me, I'll know. The challenge in his voice ignited something in her. And if I decided right now? Then I'd ask if you were sure. If this is what you truly want, not what you think you should want. I'm sure, she whispered, surprised to find it was true. Something shifted in his expression. Control giving way to want. Then come here. She moved into his space, and he cupped her face with both hands, searching her eyes one last time before kissing her. This wasn't like the courthouse kiss. This was fire and desperation, and 3 weeks of tension finally breaking. His mouth claimed hers with skill and hunger, and she melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt. He pulled her onto his lap, and she went willingly, straddling him as the kiss deepened. His hands slid into her hair, and she gasped against his mouth. Ilara, he groaned, if you want to stop, don't stop. He didn't. The next morning, Ilara woke in Xavier's bed, winter sunlight streaming through the windows. He was already awake, propped on one elbow, watching her with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. Good morning, wife. She smiled. Good morning, husband. Regrets? None. Being with you could never be a regret. He brushed hair from her face. Though, now that we've crossed this line, I should warn you, I'm not good at casual. If this is just physical for you, I'll manage. But you should know that I'm already halfway in love with you. Her breath caught. Xavier. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know where I stand. He kissed her forehead. Now, I believe we have a party to attend tonight. Are you ready to make our debut? The party? She'd almost forgotten. One of Xavier's business associates was hosting a charity gala at the Art Institute, the kind of event that attracted Chicago's elite, including, almost certainly, the Sterling family. I'm ready, she said. Let's show them what they lost. The gala was in the modern wing, dripping with opulence and old money. Ilara wore a dress Xavier had bought her, midnight velvet that hugged every curve, with a slit up one thigh and a back that plunged scandalously low. She looked expensive, powerful, untouchable. Xavier, in his tuxedo, was devastating. They looked like money and danger and sex, and Ilara could feel eyes tracking them as they entered. Remember, Xavier murmured, his hand possessive on her lower back. You're untouchable now. Mrs. Sterling, my wife, let them stare. And stare they did. They made it through cocktails and dinner without incident. Xavier introduced her to dozens of people, investors, politicians, other business owners. Everyone treated her with respect, bordering on reverence, and it took her a while to realize it wasn't about her accomplishments. It was about him, his power. They respected her because she was his. It should have bothered her. But honestly? After 3 years of Caleb's family treating her like an embarrassment, being treated like a queen was intoxicating. They were at the bar when it happened. Richard Sterling went still. Then, slowly, deliberately, he turned. He stood 3 feet away, looking like he'd seen a ghost. Hello, brother, Xavier said pleasantly. It's been a while. Richard had aged since the photos Ilara had seen. Grayer, softer around the middle, but still handsome in a patrician way. His expression cycled through shock, confusion, and then something like fear when his eyes landed on Alara. "Miss Vance?" he said slowly. "Mrs. Sterling, actually," Alara corrected, holding up her left hand where the ruby caught the light. Richard's face went white. "What?" "My wife," Xavier confirmed, pulling Alara close. "We married last month. Quite the whirlwind romance. But when you know, don't you agree? You can't." Richard looked between them. "Caleb said you two ended things." "Caleb and I ended things," Alara said smoothly. "Then I met Xavier. Funny how life works out." "You married my brother." Richard's voice was strangled. "My brother? Your brother?" Xavier agreed. "The one you stole from? The one you tried to erase? Surprise, I'm back. And I brought the woman your son was stupid enough to discard." "Caleb!" Richard called desperately. And there he was, Caleb Sterling, looking successful in his tuxedo with a beautiful blonde woman on his arm. Genevieve Dubois, presumably. Caleb's eyes found Alara, and his expression lit up. "Alara, I've been trying to reach you. Can we talk?" Then he saw Xavier, saw Alara's hand in his, saw the ring. "What the hell is this?" Caleb demanded. "Caleb, meet my husband, Xavier Sterling," Alara said, "though I believe you're related." "Related? I don't have an—" Caleb looked at his father. "Dad. He's my brother," Richard bit out. "Your uncle." Caleb's face went through several shades of red. "You married my uncle? Are you insane?" "Careful," Xavier said, and his voice went cold. "That's my wife you're addressing. You were engaged to me," Caleb sputtered. "Was I?" Alara tilted her head. "I seem to recall you trading me for an investment and a more suitable wife. How's that working out for you? By the way, Genevieve, is it? You look lovely. Tell me, does Caleb's family approve of you? Or are you also just a business transaction?" Genevieve's expression suggested she knew exactly what she was. "You did this for revenge," Caleb accused. "You married some old guy just to spite me." "I married a man who values me," Alara corrected. "A man who sees my worth. A man who coincidentally is far more successful, intelligent, and attractive than you'll ever be. The revenge is just a delightful bonus." "She's right about the attractive part," Genevieve murmured, eyeing Xavier with interest. Caleb shot her a betrayed look. "This is inappropriate," Richard interjected. "Xavier, you haven't been part of this family for 30 years. You can't just what? Marry a brilliant woman and reintegrate into society?" Xavier's smile was sharp. "Watch me. Oh, and Richard. That donation you were planning to make tonight to secure the harbor contract? I've already pledged double. The contract is mine, just like everything else you thought was secure." Richard's face purpled. "You have no right." "I have every right. I'm a Sterling, just like you. The difference is I built my empire honestly." "Well," he amended, "more honestly than you did anyway." "We should go," Caleb said tightly, grabbing Genevieve's arm, "before this gets more embarrassing." "Embarrassing for whom?" Alara asked sweetly. "I'm having a wonderful time." Caleb's parting look was pure venom, but beneath it she saw what she'd been hoping for. Regret. Deep, painful regret. After they left, Xavier signaled for champagne. "That went well," he observed. Alara laughed, giddy with adrenaline. "Did you see his face?" "I was too busy watching you eviscerate him with perfect politeness. It was beautiful. I can't believe we just did that." "We did. And now all of Chicago's elite knows that you're mine, that I'm back, and that the Sterling family politics just became very interesting." He raised his glass. "To new beginnings." She clinked her glass against his. "To revenge. And to us." "To us?" she agreed, and meant it. The story of Alara and Xavier's marriage spread through Chicago's elite circles like wildfire. Within days, it was in the society pages. Architectural prodigy Alara Vance weds shipping mogul Xavier Sterling in surprise marriage. The article included a photo from the gala. Alara in her velvet dress, Xavier's hand possessive on her waist, both of them looking like power incarnate. The caption mentioned the fascinating family connection to Sterling Logistics, and speculation ran wild. At her office, Alara's phone rang off the hook. Clients she'd been courting for months suddenly returned calls. Invitations to bid on prestigious projects appeared in her inbox. Her business, already successful, was suddenly operating on an entirely different level. "It's the Sterling name," her business partner Naya observed. Nia was a sharp-tongued woman who'd known Alara since grad school and didn't pull punches. People see you're connected to serious money and power, and suddenly you're worth their time. It's gross, but we might as well benefit from it. "I didn't marry him for business connections," Alara protested. Nia raised an eyebrow. "Didn't you? At least partially?" Fair point. But as days turned into weeks, Alara realized the business benefits were the least interesting part of her new life. Living with Xavier was intoxicating. He was attentive without being controlling, generous without being patronizing. He genuinely cared about her work, her thoughts, her day, and the physical chemistry between them had only intensified since that first night. She'd stopped sleeping in her suite after the third night. Now she fell asleep in his arms and woke to his kisses, and it felt more real than anything with Caleb ever had. But there were still shadows. Sometimes his phone would ring late at night, and he'd step out of the room to take the call. Men in expensive suits would visit the penthouse for meetings in his study, and Alara was never invited to join. Once, she'd woken at 3 a.m. to find his side of the bed empty and blood on his shirt in the bathroom hamper. When she'd asked about it the next morning, he'd simply said, "Business complications. Nothing for you to worry about." She'd let it go, but the reminder that she'd married someone dangerous, someone with secrets, lingered. 2 months into their marriage, the first real crack appeared. Alara came home from a client meeting to find Caleb in her building's lobby. "How did you get in here?" she demanded. "I told the doorman I was your fiancé. Old habit. I guess he remembered me." Caleb looked terrible. Rumpled suit, dark circles under his eyes, desperation in his expression. "Please, Alara, 5 minutes." "No. I love you. You don't even know what love is." "I made a mistake." His voice rose, drawing attention from other residents. "I was stupid and greedy, and I threw away the best thing in my life. But I've ended things with Genevieve. I told my father I don't care about his approval anymore. I want you back." "Too little. Too late." "Is it him? Are you actually in love with my uncle? Or is this just an act?" Caleb grabbed her arm. "Because I know you, Alara. I know you wouldn't actually fall for some gangster old enough to be your father. Let go of me. Not until you admit this is all just to hurt me." "And if she doesn't admit to it?" A deep, masculine voice drawled lazily from behind them. Caleb and Alara turned to find Xavier standing a few feet away, with the most feral expression on his face. "Okay, but the way they served that entire family—" "I'm screaming! But don't think this story is over. We still have revenge to plan and a romance to develop. Make sure you like this video if you're Team Xavier and Alara. Subscribe for part 2, because trust me, the Sterling family isn't going to take this lying down. And Xavier has some secrets he hasn't told Alara yet. Comment below. Do you think their marriage will become real love? Or is Xavier hiding something darker? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.